Hello and welcome back. Well, today's project is going to be a little bit of scroll sawing. I made these a couple of months ago now. They call them the cuddling cats. There's a shape of a cat there in darker wood and the shape of a cat there in lighter wood. And basically what you do is you have two bits of wood, you stack them together, you cut out the shape, and then you use one of each type of wood and glue them together on a backing board. Now this one's been glued on a white backing board and this one's been glued on a black backing board. You can see it's not that complicated for a scroll saw project. A few cuts around for the shape of the cat and then some piercing cuts in here for the whiskers and the ear. So pretty easy to do. And today I'll go through the process. We're going to do this over at the other shed because I have my scroll saw in that shed there. So I hope you enjoy. The first thing we need to do is to prepare our pieces of wood. I've cut these out on the bandsaw and then put them through the planer, and these are just under a quarter of an inch thick. Now you just got to make sure that they're the same thickness because we're going to be using some of this wood and some of this wood together. Then we need to stack them together and make sure that they're not going to come apart. And the way we can do that is by using a bit of super glue. We can put a dab in the corners here and then that can go down. And we can also put tape around here as well to hold it together. So we'll quickly get that done. Just drawn a square around the pattern here to match the size of the wood. So we're going to cut that out. The pattern needs to be glued onto the surface here, but instead of leaving residue or anything like that on here, we're going to put some blue painter's tape on here, then we'll glue the pattern on top. Now what I did for the lighter wood where the grain was going along, I've put the tape the same way because I can't actually see the grain now, so I know the grain is going the same way as the tape. So when we do the cats, we'll put them on that way there so the grain is coming across this way. You can glue your pattern on with a lot of different things. I used a glue stick once and the pattern started lifting off, and that's not what you want when you're scroll sawing. So I have this stuff here. It's just a spray adhesive. I don't like using it much because it comes out in clumps and things like that. Gets all over your hands. But anyway, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to spray it onto here and then we'll put the pattern on. Now, the next step, we need to put something on top of this because we don't want the saw to pull on the pattern here and to lift it off. So we can put a bit of this clear tape over the top. And in other cases, I've just used this clear sticky plastic stuff. It's what you put on covers or what you use to cover the school books for the kids. But today we're just going to use a bit of this clear tape. Alright, the next step is to cut out the holes. There's not many to do, just these white areas here where the whiskers are and the ear and the eye and the nose. So that should work fine there. Here's a little cordless drill. You just plug it into a 5-volt charger to charge it. Works really well. Just bought it cheap off Temu or AliExpress or something. But just what we need for doing our holes here. I've just given the back here a light sand with some 240 grit sandpaper just to get the bumps off the drill holes, and that's so that when you're using it on the scroll saw you can move it around quite easily. I've put on a number 3 blade here, and then we can just poke it through one of the holes. And bring the top arm down to clamp it in. And we are ready to go. Firstly, I apologise for the video. I think the leg of the tripod was resting on the side of the machine. So all of the video here that you see of the scroll sawing is all over the place. Therefore, I've cut most of it out. The other thing is that I think the noise cancelling on the microphone switched off. So I've had to redo the sound, and that's why the sound sounds a bit tinny. But there's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. I've done all these piercing cuts here. So now we're going to be able to cut through here and cut the tails out as well. I'll leave the perimeter for last. I cut the tails out like this just so it doesn't fall apart. There is still blue tape on the edges here, so that's still holding it together. The glue is in the middle here. I didn't want to cut the corners off. But I think now what I can do is cut around the outside, and then the kits will be cut out, and then it's just a final cut through the center here. And then we are pretty much finished. So the two pieces are separate now, and I've put this tape here just to hold it all together. So one final cut down here, and that should be all. Right, now we are all cut out, it's just time to remove all of the blue tape and the pattern as well. And because it's stuck to the blue tape, it should just peel off quite easily. Yeah, it does take quite a bit of time, so I'll do the rest of this off camera. Alright, there are the two cats all cut out and put together, matching. So the next step is just to make a little bit of rounded edges on these parts so that the gaps seem consistent all the way through. Then we'll look at putting them onto some sort of backing board. Hopefully the microphone is fixed now and we have the noise cancelling working again, making it nice and clear. I'm using a bit of 240 grit sandpaper just to tidy these edges up. I have some of this thin board. I think it was the bottom of a drawer. So I've got enough here for this one here, and I've got some more over here which I'll use for the other one. Now the other one we're going to put a black film on there. So we'll have, just like what I showed you at the beginning, one set of cats that has a white background and one set of cats that has a black background. First thing to do is just work out our diameter, and I think if I make it 126 we should be pretty good. I'll roughly find the center here. And scribe a line around. And that's good. So we'll take that over to the scroll saw and we will cut that out. So not so hard on this one, just follow the line around in a circle. It doesn't matter if you come on the outside of the line a bit, because we're going to true all of the edges up later once everything's glued together. The next step is to glue these pieces on. Just using a bit of PVA. Whoops, maybe a bit much there. Spread it all around. And then we can set it down in place on the backing board. Probably about there somewhere. This one should fit in fine, yes. I'll do the same to this and the tails. I'll put it all in and then I will put a weight on it and I'll leave it for tomorrow, and then we'll come back then and we will trim up the outside and then put a finish on it, and that should be all complete. Okay, so everything is dried overnight, and now we just need to grind this white area down until it's around the edge of the two cats here. I sand back the wider bits first until I get them down to the thinner bits that are sticking out. And once everything is even, then it's just a matter of sanding it all the way down till it's flush with the top. The next thing I need to do is just take the sharp edges off here and on the underside, and then we will put a lacquer on them. I'm just using a bit of 320 grit sandpaper. I go around a few times just to get that edge off. I've mentioned in a few other videos that this is my favourite part, is to put the finish on the item. And I'm using a spray lacquer, Rust-Oleum, so let's give that a go. Well, that is the first coat, and you can instantly see the contrast between the two woods there. Now, I know that the darker wood here soaks up a lot of the lacquer, so I'm going to let this dry and I'll probably give it another 1 or 2 coats. Well, there they are. The Cuddling cats are all finished. These ones at the back here, a little bit shinier. They're the original ones. And I probably used a different lacquer for those, I think. These are the ones that I just did in the video. Not as shiny, but they still look quite good. Now, my daughter had claimed one of these original ones, and I was going to give one of those away to someone else, and I actually going to give these 2 away to a couple of daughters from my friends. So yeah, we'll give those away, and I'm sure they will appreciate them. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a great little project to make these. Thanks for watching.